Item D16 is professional services agreement for 65th Street Northwest interchange design and environmental assessment worksheet, project J72-12. We just keep talking about 65th Street. Mr. Wojcik.
I bet none of you saw me pulling this. I made some statements before, but I just wanted to rehash a little bit, and bring up some of the reasons why I have concerns about this in particular. When we did 40th and 48th Street a while back, I don't know if a lot of people realize that about $85 million in government dollars went into that project, and that from that, according to MSA data, we netted no increase in retail jobs. We saw no incremental increase in sales tax revenues from that, basically meaning whatever happened out there was taken away from somewhere else. The property taxes out there, I do not believe they cover the cost. The financial commitments in that one were not met. We contributed to sprawl in an area where you can't even walk from one business to the next, and because of the big box nature that we subsidized out there, we have more and more money leaving the economy. I look at 65th Street as being a potential repeat of that very same error, and there's, if we're going to go forward with this, my biggest concern is how much that we're paying, and I want to make sure that if we're going to do this, I don't want to see the taxpayers subsidizing this heavily. And in particular, some of my concerns with this is, it points in here the study is going to be about $570,000, but MnDOT's not willing to pay a cent of that, even though at this point, according to their own analysis, I believe this would be their #1 priority project in the state at this point for interchanges. And there is going to be a lot of subsidy on this. In particular, we've got the 25%, even if we create a TID, that the taxpayers are going to be kicking in on this. We've already talked about some pretty substantial subsidies in terms of sewer construction and operation. There's existing subsidies in the way that we charge fees for sewer water and stormwater. These are all things that the taxpayer are going to be paying for at a time where we have about a 30-year supply of developable land already in the city, and we're building infrastructure that's going to open up more. There are some traffic concerns existing up there, but a separate project is aimed at dealing with this, the 55th Street project, and we're not even talking about that one. But I think the biggest concern I have about moving forward with this at this point is that this relies on some sales tax dollars that we don't even know if we're going to be able to have a referendum for yet. And I understand that this is just the planning part, but I really want to see some answers to this, because that 55th Street project, we're not going to be able to create a TID up there. The taxpayers are going to end up paying for 100% of that, and it's going to be a project in the millions of dollars. And I don't see the need, I don't see the justification. I see a history of this kind of project failing the taxpayers of Rochester. I continue to be concerned about it, so until I see some data that suggests there's going to be some payback for the enormous, enormous taxpayer subsidies that we're talking about for this project, I'm inclined not to support going forward with it.
Mr. Freeze, any comments?
Just from a schedule perspective, the study that is being completed right now, the Northern Rochester Transportation Study, utilized data that was collected in 2006 and updated again in 2009, I believe. MnDOT has indicated that there's a point in time when that data that was collected becomes in fact dated. It's no longer valid. And in the memorandum of understanding that you approved last week, there is language in there that basically says that we need to move forward on these projects basically within about a 5-year period, or we will have to go back and redo and reevaluate the studies that we've been working on since 2006 to get to this point. So there is no immediacy to this as far as an action tonight. The reason it's on your agenda, we've been holding it off until the state had agreed to the memorandum of understanding the conditions that would allow us to go forward with the interchange. But if there's additional information the council would like to review and discuss with staff and others, we can remove it from the agenda at this time.
All right. Mr. Staver?
I share some of Mr. Wojcik's concerns on this one. And thank you for that comment, because I was wondering about the timing and whether it actually absolutely needed to be done at this point in time. To Mr. Wojcik's comment, we don't know whether the entirety of the project will be funded yet until, some months from now, when the outcome of the sales tax topic is decided. And by anybody's checkbook, $570,000 is a chunk of change. So if I don't have to spend it right now, if I can defer that for a while till I have more certainty I would certainly prefer to do that.
How long can we defer, Mr. Freeze?
Well, I think the council can defer as long as it
Well-
chooses to, but I think right now that the issue on the calendar, if you will, is that the 55th Street project that Councilman Wojcik referred to is a Phase 1 project of 3 phases, and that's scheduled for 2012 construction. It was anticipated that if this particular project at 65th Street was completed in advance of the proposed interchange modifications at 55th Street in 2012, it would relieve some of the pressure and some of the congestion that would occur during that one-year construction of 55th Street. And all of you know what kind of congestion there is today. Add closure of one lane in each direction across that bridge for a period of about a year, it's not obviously going to get any better. So from a construction sequencing perspective, it would be advantageous to have this project built and open to traffic prior to the 55th Street project beginning. But that's not, and I would agree, that's not the reason to move forward. It's just a point that I wanted you to be aware of.
And at this point, we're not sure about the sales tax money, but that is the only monies we'll have available for that, right, Mr. Newman? The sales tax funding, if the extension goes through, that is money will be dedicated to 65th Street interchange, correct?
There's a number of projects.
But I mean for transportation.
There's a number
Right.
of projects you
Okay.
can dedicate funds.
Okay. Mr. Ruska?
I guess I have the same points on this. I mean, you know, we've got, maybe it's the time of the year. You drive around town and you see the roads are really beat up and you're thinking, you know, we keep putting money in 65th Street. Is there other roads with the sales tax that we could be applying this money to for, you know, construction, rebuilding of some of these roads right now that we don't have any funding for that are going to need it in the future? Is that, could we identify that from this tax dollars, some roads out there that we could be using if we weren't putting this towards this?
Well, you've already identified roads for the sales tax, and there are more roads than there are funding, at least for the city part of the, actually for the county part as well. So you do have a few options on that, but you've already identified roads.
But they're not getting done, right?
Not right now. I mean, the funds are there to be used to, you try and maximize your funds. In some cases, you'll get federal funds or state funds that help with a specific project. You match some sales tax dollars to it and they go further and you do a few more projects. So you have a little longer list of projects than you have, than the funding is going to get to.
Well, I guess I'd be in favor of us taking a little look into the future, a little bit on projections of what roads we could be repairing currently with the same funds that we could be using down the road to put a new street, a new interchange in. So that would, I think, has some merits for us to take a look at before we make this decision. So I guess I'd be in favor of something in that manner.
Just one comment, and that's the studies that have done on transportation movement in this area have shown that there are benefits to 65th Street as well as there are to the 55th Street improvements. So, you know, that study was all part of a package and it looked at all the road improvements in that area. So, in a sense, they all end up working together. But that is something that you are free to review anytime you want.
Mr. Freeze?
Just to follow up on what Gary's last comment is that there was not a single solution at 55th Street that's completely solved the projected congestion that would occur at that location that did not include the interchange at 65th Street. So there is not a single solution to 55th Street that we can build, and 65th Street was identified as a piece of the solution at 55th Street. So independent of any additional development activity that might occur around the interchange, it did provide a transportation network benefit to the overall system in that area.
Is this the last necessary funding for studies for that, for 65th Street?
Yes.